Listen to me. The greatest tragedy in the church today is not sin, not sickness, not poverty. It is that millions of Christians know about prayer, but they have never fallen in love with prayer. They pray like a soldier forced to march, not like a lover running to the arms of the one they desire. That is why prayer feels heavy, boring, impossible. But I came here to tell you, the secret to a victorious Christian life is not more money, not more talent, not more connections. It is learning how to fall in love with prayer until prayer becomes your breath, your joy, your passion. When prayer turns into love, no one has to force you to do it. You want to do it, you long to do it, you run to do it. And in that place, heaven opens, miracles are born, and your soul is set on fire. My friend, let's be honest. For many believers, prayer has become a duty instead of a delight. We start with good intentions, but after 5 minutes, the mind wanders, the heart feels dry, and the words seem empty. Have you ever felt that way? You close your eyes, you fold your hands, and instead of touching heaven, you are thinking about bills, about problems, about what you will eat tomorrow. You try to pray, but it feels like talking to the ceiling. You know you should pray, but you don't want to. You know prayer changes things, but you don't feel it. You've heard others speak of fire in the secret place, but when you kneel down, you only find silence. Listen carefully. You are not alone. Even the greatest saints walk through dry seasons. Even David cried in Psalm 63:1, "O God, you are my God, earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh faints for you, in a dry and weary land where there is no water." David was not bored in prayer, he was desperate for it. His words reveal something deeper. Prayer is not about forcing your lips to speak. It is about awakening your soul to thirst. This is where most Christians miss it. They approach prayer as an obligation, but prayer was never meant to be a prison. Prayer is meant to be a romance. Jesus did not die to make you a religious machine. He died to bring you into fellowship with the Father, so deep that prayer becomes the language of love. But let me ask you, when was the last time you felt in love with prayer? When was the last time you longed for the secret place more than the applause of men, more than success, more than comfort? This is the cry of my spirit for you today. God does not want you to simply pray. He wants you to fall in love with prayer. The secret to falling in love with prayer is not found in forcing discipline, but in discovering desire. You cannot manufacture love by willpower. Love is awakened by vision. If prayer feels empty to you, it is not because God is far away. It is because your eyes have grown dim to who He really is. When you see Him as a distant judge, prayer will always feel heavy. But when you see Him as a loving Father, prayer becomes the most natural thing in the world. Think of a child who runs into the arms of his father. He does not prepare a script. He does not worry about sounding holy. He simply cries, "Daddy!" and the father bends low to embrace him. That is prayer. Not a performance, not a ritual, but a relationship. This is why Jesus began His prayer with the words, "Our Father." He was showing us that the doorway into prayer is love, not fear. Many of you are tired in prayer because you are trying to push words up to heaven instead of opening your heart to let heaven come down. You pray as if God were distant, uninterested, hard to reach. But Jesus said in Matthew 6:6, "Your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." What, did you hear that? Your Father sees. He is already in the secret place, waiting. Prayer is not about convincing God to arrive. It is about awakening yourself to the fact that He is already there. The secret, my friend, is not more effort. It is more surrender. Not longer words, but deeper hunger. The psalmist said, "Taste and see that the Lord is good." Psalm 34:8. Falling in love with prayer begins when you taste His presence and realize that nothing else in this world satisfies like Him. Have you noticed that when you are in love with someone, you don't count the minutes you spend with them? You don't look at the clock. You are lost in the joy of being together. That is what God wants with you in prayer. Not duty, but delight. Not pressure, but passion. Not counting words, but losing yourself in His presence. But I know what some of you are thinking. You say, "Pastor, how can I fall in love with prayer when I feel so empty? When my heart is heavy? When my mind is racing? When my life is full of battles?" And I understand you, because I too have lived those days when prayer felt like a burden, not a joy. There were seasons when I was sick in my body, when I was overwhelmed by the needs of the church, when I was attacked by critics, and I would kneel to pray, but the words felt dry. My heart felt far. I wanted to run away, not pray. But it was in those very moments that God taught me the greatest lesson. Love for prayer is born in the fire, not outside of it. When you are lonely, prayer becomes the place where you hear God whisper, "I am with you." When you are anxious, prayer becomes the place where God carries your fears and replaces them with peace. When you feel injustice, prayer becomes the courtroom where God promises, "I will defend you." When you feel forgotten, prayer becomes the reminder that your name is written on His hands. This is why the secret to loving prayer is not waiting for life to get easier. If you wait until all your problems are solved, you will never begin. The secret is to bring your wounds into the presence of God, and there, in the middle of your pain, you will discover a love that holds you. Prayer is not about escaping life. It is about inviting God into the middle of your life. It is about saying, "Father, here is my weakness, here is my confusion, here is my anger, here is my joy." And as you do this day after day, you begin to realize this is not just talking to God. This is walking with Him. And suddenly, prayer stops being a duty and becomes your lifeline. You begin to long for it, like a thirsty man longs for water, because every time you come, He meets you, sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, sometimes with peace, sometimes with tears, but always with His presence. And once you taste that presence, you fall in love with prayer, not because you are strong, but because He is beautiful. My friend, listen carefully. When you fall in love with prayer, it does not only change you, it changes everything around you. Prayer is not a private hobby, it is a spiritual fire that spreads. I have seen entire families healed because one mother prayed in love. I have seen nations touched because one small group of believers cried out to God day and night. I have seen the hardest hearts melt when someone whispered their names before the throne of heaven. This is why the devil hates prayer. He fears a believer who loves to pray, because that believer carries power that no weapon can break. That believer walks with authority that does not come from money, education, or influence, but from the living God who listens. Do you see now? The secret to falling in love with prayer is not technique. It is not about how many words you say or how loud you cry. The secret is this: when you pray, God comes near. And when God comes near, nothing is the same. So tomorrow morning, do not wait for perfect feelings. Do not wait until you feel ready. Just kneel. Just whisper His name. Just sit in silence with an open heart. And you will see, even a few minutes will fill your soul with peace. Even a single verse will set your heart on fire. Even a single "Father, I need you" will bring heaven close. And day after day, this will grow. What once felt difficult will become your greatest joy. What once felt heavy will become the moment you look forward to. Prayer will no longer be a duty, but your breath, your food, your strength. And one day, you will look back and say, "That was the secret. I did not just learn to pray. I fell in love with prayer. And in falling in love with prayer, I fell deeper in love with God." So now I ask you, will you keep treating prayer as a duty, or will you dare to fall in love with it? Beloved, God is not waiting for perfect words. He is waiting for your heart. He is waiting for your whisper. He is waiting for the moment you open the door and let Him in. Do not leave this message as just another sermon. Take it as a call from heaven. Tonight, when you close your eyes, speak to Him. Tomorrow morning, before the world calls your name, whisper His. And in those small moments, the fire of prayer will begin to grow. If you stay faithful, if you stay thirsty, that fire will never die. It will carry you through storms. It will heal your wounds. It will lift your soul, and it will shape your destiny. Remember this: the secret is not to force yourself to pray. The secret is to discover the joy of being with God. And when you taste that joy, you will not want to live one day without it. So walk from this place with new determination. Lift your heart, open your mouth, take the first step, and you will find that prayer is not just something you do. It is where you live, where you breathe, where you fall in love with God again and again. Because when you fall in love with prayer, you fall in love with the God who answers.